Hello again, friend. Today, I start a story that I thought I knew, but I didn't. I have never read it. And once I started, well, I realized this story was wonderful. I didn't want to cut out a single word. But even though this is a short story, it is still very long. So I have split this into 5 chapters. Please let me know if you think this is a good idea. I would also love suggestions for a poll for this story. So, without further ado, The Amazing Rip Van Winkle by Washington Irving. Whoever has made a voyage up the Hudson must remember the Catskill Mountains. They are a dismembered branch of the great Appalachian family, and are seen away to the west of the river, swelling up to a noble height and lording it over the surrounding country. Every change of season, every change of weather, indeed, every hour of the day, produces some change in the magical hues and shapes of these mountains, and they are regarded by all the good wives, far and near, as perfect barometers. When the weather is fair and settled, they are clothed in blue and purple, and print their bold outlines on the clear evening sky. But sometimes, when the rest of the landscape is cloudless, they will gather a hood of gray vapors about their summits, which, in the last rays of the setting sun, will glow and light up like a crown of glory. It's so beautiful. This is why I'm reading it all. I hope it doesn't become Hans Tangent Christian paid by the word Anderson. At the foot of these fairy mountains, the voyager may have discovered the light smoke curling up from a village, whose shingle roofs gleam among the trees, just where the blue tints of the upland melt away into the fresh green of the nearer landscape. It is a little village of great antiquity, having been founded by some of the Dutch colonists in the early times of the province, just about the beginning of the government of the good Peter Stuyvesant. Stuyvesant. May he rest in peace. Per Wikipedia, Peter Stuyvesant was a Dutch colonial administrator who served in New Netherland. New Netherland would now be known as New York and New Jersey. He is a bit of a controversial figure, as he did a lot of good, but also tried to deny entrance to anyone who wasn't of the Dutch Reformed Church. This includes Lutherans, Jews, Roman Catholics, and Quakers. And there were some of the houses of the original settlers standing within a few years, built of small yellow bricks brought from Holland, having latticed windows and gable fronts surmounted with weathercocks. In that same village, and in one of these very houses, which, to tell the precise truth, was sadly time-worn and weather-beaten, there lived many years since, while the country was yet a province of Great Britain, a simple, good-natured fellow of the name of Rip Van Winkle. He was a descendant of the Van Winkles, who figured so gallantly in the chivalrous days of Peter Stuyvesant, and accompanied him to the siege of Fort Christina. He inherited, however, but little of the martial characteristics of his ancestors. I have observed that he was a simple, good-natured man. He was, moreover, a kind neighbor and an obedient, henpecked husband. Indeed, to the latter circumstance might be owing that meekness of spirit which gave him such universal popularity. For those men are apt to be obsequious and conciliating abroad. So, clearly Mr. Irving owned a thesaurus, who are under the discipline of shrews at home. Their tempers, doubtless, are rendered pliant and malleable in the fiery furnace of domestic tribulation, and a curtain lecture is worth all the sermons in the world for teaching the virtues of patience and long-suffering. A termagant wife may, therefore, in some respects be considered a tolerable blessing. And if so, Rip Van Winkle was thrice blessed. Certain it is that he was a great favourite among all the good wives of the village, who, as usual with the amiable sex, took his part in all family squabbles, and never failed, whenever they talked those matters over in their evening gossipings, to lay all the blame on Dame Van Winkle. The children of the village, too, would shout with joy whenever he approached. He assisted at their sports, made their playthings, taught them to fly kites and shoot marbles, and told them long stories of ghosts, witches, and Native Americans. I like this man. Whenever he went dodging about the village, he was surrounded by a troop of them, hanging on his skirts, clambering on his back, and playing 1,000 tricks on him with impunity, and not a dog would bark at him throughout the neighborhood. The great error in Rip's composition was an insufferable aversion to all kinds of profitable labor. I kind of like him even more now. It could not be for want of assiduity or perseverance, for he would sit on a wet rock with a rod as long and heavy as a Tartar's lance, and fish all day without a murmur, even though he should not be encouraged by a single nibble. He would carry a fowling piece on his shoulder for hours together, trudging through woods and swamps and up hill and down dale to shoot a few squirrels or wild pigeons. He would never refuse to assist a neighbor, even in the roughest toil, and was a foremost man in all country frolics for husking Indian corn or building stone fences. The women of the village, too, used to employ him to run their errands, and do so with such little odd jobs as their less obliging husbands would not do for them. In a word, Rip was ready to attend anybody's business but his own. But as to doing family duty and keeping his farm in order, he found it all impossible. Oh, I get it. Generous to a fault, always willing to lend a helping hand, but my work, I'll get to it. Eventually. In fact, he declared it was of no use to work on his farm. It was the most pestilent little piece of ground in the whole country. Everything about it went wrong in spite of him. His fences were continually falling to pieces. His cow would either go astray or get among the cabbages. Weeds were sure to grow quicker in his fields than anywhere else. The rain always made a point of setting in just as he had some outdoor work to do. So that, though his patrimonial estate had dwindled away under his management, acre by acre, until there was little more left than a mere patch of Indian corn and potatoes, yet it was the worst conditioned farm in the neighborhood. I wonder why the neighbors didn't come round to lend a helping hand to Rip. His farm was clearly struggling, and many hands make light the work. His children, too, were as ragged and wild as if they belonged to nobody. His son, Rip, was urchin begotten, in his own likeness, promised to inherit the habits with the old clothes of his father. He was generally seen trooping like a colt at his mother's heels, equipped in a pair of his father's cast-off galligaskins, which he had much ado to hold up with one hand, as a fine lady does her train in bad weather. Rip Van Winkle, however, was one of those happy mortals of foolish, well-oiled dispositions who take the world easy, eat white bread or brown, whichever can be got with least thought or trouble, and would rather starve on a penny than work for a pound. If left to himself, he would have whistled life away in perfect contentment. Oh, me too, Rip, me too. Sadly, the whole adult thing gets in the way. But his wife kept continually dining in his ears about his idleness, his carelessness, and the ruin he was bringing on his family. Morning, noon, and night her tongue was incessantly going, and everything he said or did was sure to produce a torrent of household eloquence. Gee, she seems nice. Rip had but one way of replying to all lectures of the kind, and that, by frequent use, he had grown into a habit. He shrugged his shoulders, shook his head, cast up his eyes, but said nothing. This, however, always provoked a fresh volley from his wife, so that he was fain to draw off his forces and take to the outside of the house, the only side which, in truth, belongs to a henpecked husband. Rip's sole domestic adherent was his dog Wolf, who was as much henpecked as his master, for Dame Van Winkle regarded them as companions in idleness, and even looked upon Wolf with an evil eye, as the cause of his master's going so often astray. Never hurt the dog. True it is in all points of spirit befitting an honorable dog. He was as courageous an animal as ever scoured the woods. But what courage can withstand the evil doing and all besetting terrors of a woman's tongue? I am not sure I should point out that's sexist, or wonder if she has an asymmetrical haircut. The moment Wolf entered the house, his crest fell, his tail drooped to the ground or curled between his legs. He sneaked about with a gallows air, casting many sidelong glances at Dame Van Winkle, and at the least flourish of a broomstick or ladle, he would fly to the door with yelping precipitation. Right. I don't like this woman at all.
Asymmetrical haircut!
I guess that is sort of the point. Not liking her. Well, we come to the end of this video. What will happen? I mean, aside from the one thing that everybody knows will happen. Because it's a pretty famous story. But the point is this what we know? Join us next week to find out. Now it's time to ask you to like, share, and subscribe. The song of all YouTubers. Why? Because the algorithm demands it. We will not be able to find new friends if we don't feed the algorithm. Sad but true. Don't forget the notification bell, just in case you forgot the notification bell, but I wanted to remind you about the notification bell. Please consider joining our Patreon page. If you're worried about money, don't be. We have a free moral supporter level where you can still join in on the polls and conversations. I'm trying to post more frequently. I also have a Facebook and Instagram, when I remember them. I would like to thank Pixabay.com for all their wonderful content. I just love them. But, most importantly, I would like to thank you, my dear friends, for joining me every week. You mean more to me than words can say. And now, for a special thank you to my Patreon friends.